Hey guys, it's Reagan, and today I'm reviewing People Meet Me on Vacation, the movie. So here's the deal, right? It is a book adaptation. I did recently read the book, but I'm trying not to judge it as a one-to-one adaptation, but I will be referencing the book because unfortunately I do think that if you go into an adaptation with a built-in fan base, you do have to suffer the consequences of not living up to the material or not being as good. However, I will say in some cases, I do totally love adaptations that are different from the source material itself. Like Ella Enchanted, the book is so much different than the movie, and that's my favorite example. But if you are different, you have to deliver a level of quality and you have to make it fun and a very enjoyable experience. So without further ado, what did I think of People We Meet on Vacation, the movie? Okay, well, it was a little too sanitized for me. It was a little too flat. I think the problem is that this is coming from a really rich character-driven work, and you're gonna really not do very much characterization for the main male lead. You got a really big problem, especially because the thing about it is that while the cast is impeccable, where you have Tom Blythe as Alex and Emily Bader as Poppy, Alex as a character is like the straight man character. He is a character that is very much below the surface. Is someone that's maybe not as captivating, whereas Poppy is so boisterous, she's fun, she's electric. You will root for her just initially as the audience anyway, because she is the lead and she's who you have the point of view coming from, and so you're more likely to root for her. But as Alex, you have more of the uphill battle because he's so like quiet and more reserved. You don't get him. So when you don't have that depiction, it's like, well, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, that is so hard to convey, them having this really dynamic, amazing love story, especially as friends to lovers. That is something that's the hardest thing, and that's why I don't always love the trope. You have to really establish why these people did not get together earlier, you know? And so Alex, you don't have his familial trauma. Like, you don't have him talking about how he had to take care of all his brothers, and that was after his mom died, which was mentioned. Okay, so we did get that, but you don't have him having that position in his family. He only has one brother. He has David, you know, or maybe he has more, but you only really see David. And that's something that's so essential to his character, because he is someone who consistently puts other people's needs above his own. And so when Poppy is not giving him the cues, that's why they haven't been together. Because Poppy hasn't been like, you know what, Alex, I like you. And so he's taken that. He thinks that Poppy is thriving. He thinks that Poppy is doing well without him, and that they are good as friends, you know? So that's like that miscommunication. That's why they've been separated and not come together, right? So that was really frustrating to me. And I will say, I really want to talk about a very pivotal scene in the book, which I think is a climax completely flat and missing the whole entire point in the movie for me, and that was the pregnancy scare. The pregnancy scare, when I was reading it in the book, I was really like at the edge of my seat. I was like, what's gonna happen like with Poppy? Is this gonna go be anything, you know? But Alex's response to that is so significant, and really like a bulk of how we know Alex and all this stuff, and why the relationships decayed, all this stuff. And when in the film, where Poppy's just like texting him to help her or whatever, and then they just meet up and she's like, okay, I'm not pregnant, whatever, and they almost kiss. Also weird moment. Like, it's not like, wait, I just like almost kiss, whatever. Like, I have this big, huge scare, I'm gonna kiss you. That was also interesting because they're in a level of like panic, right? So not like she's having a panic attack and he like is comforting her, whatever. Like, and he's also not panicking. Like, he's kind of like, you know. So it was kind of a weird moment for that, because they were combining the Croatia and the Tuscany trip, right? But I was just frustrated with it because in the book is this extreme level of devotion, like, I'm gonna be there for you, I'm so scared if I lose you, all this stuff, and he's like panicking, and then he gets a vasectomy because he's like, I don't want to have anyone be pregnant or whatever unless I really think about it, you know? I don't want to have like any accidents, because he lost his mother and he's so scared about that. But then also the thing about the vasectomy is that I think when he realizes that Poppy could have gotten pregnant with Trey, that they could have separate whatever, and that he could kind of lose her, so he's like, wait, I don't want that to happen with me, where I'm with some other girl and then I'm not going to be there for Poppy. And Poppy's having this response too, which is significant, maybe not as significant with Alex, but she's like, wait, Alex would drop everything for me if I had a child and I could live with him or live in Ohio and he could really help me. And he's with someone, he's with Sarah, who is his significant other, his girlfriend. What does that mean for her? Like, how evil is that I would take him from her, you know? And so that's very interesting too. But nonetheless, it's just like, whatever. We're combining the trips. I almost kissed Poppy. Okay, now I'm engaged. Oh my gosh, that annoyed me so bad. The engagement too kind of annoyed me because like obviously also after the vasectomy, Alex goes out and he finds a ring and he's like, you know what, this would be perfect for Poppy. Not Sarah. He's never in this moment where he's like, I really think I should marry Sarah, whatever. I think he kind of thinks that a little bit, or like Poppy kind of hints at that, but he never lets him take off that next week because he's like, well, he's holding out so much of a candle for Poppy, you know what I mean? And so that relationship breakup also makes sense too, that he realizes he did all this stuff. And that's why he needs to break up with Sarah, where it's like, oh, their engagement kind of fizzled out and just ended after the fact. And that's also why the Croatia trip is good and different from being separate, because he's finally like, this is what I want. I want to be with Poppy, whatever. And so when they kiss and Poppy's like, it didn't really mean anything. It's fine. We can forget about that. He's so crushed. And that's why they don't talk to each other for 2 years. Not because he got with Sarah and he's engaged now. It's just like, it annoyed me so bad. It annoyed me so bad. And also because like Sarah as a character was such a great foil to Poppy, because she's the person, she's a teacher just like him. She's not from Linfield, whatever. She just moves there and she kind of takes up her life for him. So she's doing all these things. And so maybe they were like, I don't want him to look like such a dick because she's doing everything for him, even moved to his hometown. He's still holding out candles to Poppy. So maybe they were like, that's why we'll write it like that. But at the same time, I don't really care because that shows his level of devotion. And I don't have the same rules that I have in real life for media. So that was my biggest problem. That was my biggest problem. Alex's characterization, the pregnancy scare scene, okay? And then I will say, in terms of like the vacation aspect of it, now I'm a huge traveler. I travel all the time. This is why I really love the book so much, because I read it at a point where I was like, do I need to travel all the time? Do I need to focus more on relationships, all this stuff? So it really hit at the right moment for me, which is honestly recently. I was like, oh, well, where's all this like fun activities, stuff like that? And where's like Poppy's actual job going into this? Because I do think it was actually pretty good, which I don't always think jobs are depicted that well in romances, but I do think Emily Henry did a good job of like being like, oh, she's a travel writer. She has to do this. She has to meet with photographers. She has to do all these activities. There's like no activities, dinners. It's people we meet on vacation. The vacation should be an aspect of it, except for the Canadian trip, which I think was okay. And I understand budget and not wanting to do that much stuff, but it's like, you could literally have people walking around a museum or like running around or doing different things, or like then trying to climb into a pool and the pool's closed. And that did not have to cost that much money. So that also kind of frustrated me as someone who loves to travel and who thought that that kind of enriched the book by actually having Poppy have a career that kind of makes sense and her being good at her career. Like at one point, Alex was like, itineraries? We don't do itineraries. And I'm like, what? That's like the whole crux of the book too, is part of the reason she wants out of her job is because traveling becomes such a chore, because it's not as fun. It's not as spontaneous. Like she's not living for the moment. She's having to do all these obligations as she travels. And that's also why like when she's in like Palm Springs in the book, when she tries to set up something that mimics the cheapness and the relative stuff in the past with Alex, it is more engaging, I think, because it was more about them rather than the wedding itself, and rather than the ticking time bomb of her being invited to the wedding by David, and then that's within the week and she has to just go. You know what I'm saying? So like if we have a movie that's able to go back and like play in these moments, I feel like we could have had more of the tie-in where her travel expertise and her trip life, and that being more of the main focus rather than the wedding at the end, if that makes sense too. So it kind of loses some of its personality for me, because any career, whatever, you can all have a ticking time bomb and meeting up at a wedding, but her having her job and her trying to like have this being her bread and butter also for her blog and being a traveler, her setting things up gives it a different feel and makes it more lived in and makes it more rich, you know what I mean, as material itself. So I also felt that was frustrating and lacking on Poppy's part, but I could have been okay with that if Alex had good development and they showed his complete devotion to her and actually had his backstory depicted, because that was so crucial to him, because like his job is not really as important. He's a teacher, whatever, like you're able to understand that. And I love teachers, okay, so that's nothing against teachers, but you're able to like see that more viscerally in your head, and his was not as significant because he was off on break during the summers when vacations happen. But that is really tied into Poppy's job, so it was annoying that that wasn't really included. It was kind of like throwaway, like, oh, you're gonna do a destination wedding piece, you know what I'm saying? So in summary, People We Meet on Vacation was just too typical, in my opinion. It just lacked a lot of richness that made these characters so fun, whether that be Poppy's job or even Alex's personality and backstory. The lacking of those two factors really made this just a run-of-the-mill rom-com. You know what I mean? Nothing to write home about. But you know how it is. I'm kind of harsh, so we'll see if other people agree with me or other people really love it, and I'm glad if you do. So thanks guys for watching. I know I've been away for a long time, so this is maybe a weird video to pop back up on, but I need to do more of this. I've been on TikTok for way too long, and I just don't have as much fun on there anymore. So it's time to get back to my original recipe, which is, you know, YouTube. And I need to talk about the books I'm actually reading, because I never do. I love to read, I'm always reading, but I never talk about the books I'm reading. So I was like, yeah, you know what, this is kind of kill two birds with one stone. Talk about a book and talk about the movie adaptation. Perfect. So yeah, I hope you have fun the rest of 2026, and hopefully there's better movies.